Good evening, everyone, and welcome to GDG Johannesburg. And today we'll be having our Women Techmakers session, and we hope you have fun and learn a thing or two. So, what is GDG? GDG stands for Google Developer Group, and basically, this is where developers meet up and they discuss and talk about interesting tech relating to Google. They talk about the Google technology. So this ranges from Android, Firebase, Angular, TensorFlow, Flutter, Go, etc. And yeah, so this is where we meet up, talk about those tech, and share some knowledge around that tech. So today we're having a Women Tech Makers session. So what is Women Tech Makers? It's basically a program that provides visibility, community, and resources for women in tech. And to join, you can go to womentechmakers.com. Cool. So GDG Johannesburg, we basically meet every first Wednesday of the month. You can find us at gdg.community.dev forward slash GDG Johannesburg. We are also on Twitter at GDG Johannesburg. We're also on Instagram, GDG Johannesburg. And on email, we are gdgjohannesburg@gmail.com. We also have a code of conduct so that we maintain an environment that is harassment free, and we've got an anti-harassment policy. So by attending this event, you agree to this code of conduct. But for more information, you can go to developers.google.com, and basically you can find all the guidelines from this link. But the long and short of it is that be nice and assume positive intent. If you feel that someone is not obeying the code of conduct, you can contact us on gdgjohannesburg@gmail.com. Cool. Then a huge thank you to our sponsors, Retro Rabbit for the StreamYard, as well as Offerzen for the cool swag. So Offerzen is giving you the opportunity to win some cool swag. They'll be giving away 30 swag packages tonight, and we'll show this slide again a bit later to give you a chance to fill in the form and win some cool swag. Then if you'd like to be a speaker, you can get in touch with us at gdgjohannesburg@gmail.com, or you can also DM us on Twitter at GDG and we welcome new and experienced speakers. So as a new speaker, you can basically do a lightning talk, which is a short talk where it'll be an introduction to giving talks at a small event. Then you can gradually move up to a longer duration talk. So new speakers are absolutely welcome, and would like to see you and give you this platform to start your speaking journey. Cool. So coming up in March, we've got the future of apps, declarative UIs with Kotlin multi-platform, and this will be given by Danielle, the CEO and mobile architect at Trinet. Then for March, our theme will be around Kotlin, and would like to encourage you to submit your talks. If you'd like to talk about Kotlin, get in touch with us, and we'll put you up for a talk for next month. Then also towards the end of March, we will be celebrating International Women's Day. And we welcome all women and allies. This includes guys who usually ask if they're invited to such events. they're absolutely invited and they are welcome. The event will be on Saturday, the 27th of March, and it will start at 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And it will be an online event. And what we'll have for the day, we'll have a keynote speaker, which will be either a Googler or a GDE. Then we'll also have some fun workshops. We'll also have some technical workshops as well. Then some panel discussions and virtual networking sessions. So it will be an awesome day packed with awesome activities. And we look forward to seeing you towards the end of March. And to RSVP, you can RSVP on this link. We'll show this link again later on. Cool, jumping into today's agenda. So we started off with the welcoming and the introduction. Then we'll have Project Thrive introduction from Andrea. Then we'll have Google App Engine from Sheena. Then we'll have the imposter among cloud providers from Vuyo. Then at the end, we'll have a survey, which you'll be able to fill in, and we'll say goodbye. So first up, we've got Project Thrive introduction from Andrea. Oh. Cool, can you please unmute?
Yeah, that would help, wouldn't it?
Cool. How are you doing?
Well, how are you doing, Bali?
I'm awesome, thanks. I'm awesome. Over to you.
Cool. So, hey, everyone. As Mbali said, I'm Andrea. I am the mentoring coordinator at Project Thrive, which is an initiative that is run by Offerzen. So this evening, I'm going to be chatting a little bit about what Project Thrive, specifically the mentoring program, entails, and also chatting about how to get involved. So before I start chatting about what the actual program entails, I want to take a step back to say, well, why did we develop Project Thrive? How did it come to be? So we started this mission because we wanted to help people thrive in their tech careers. And that sounds great, thrive. It sounds like a fabulous word, but it's also a little bit vague. And so what does it actually take to thrive in your tech career? And so in mulling this question over, we came up with this equation. Thrive equals empathy plus time. And so we believe that finding the right partner who will give you empathy and their time can really accelerate your career, can really kind of push you over to that next little step of your career. But finding that right partner who is able to give you empathy and time and support can feel like absolute magic, razzmatazz. Like all the kind of puzzle pieces are coming together. But finding that right partner can also be really, really hard. In fact, it can seem pretty insurmountable, especially when you are the first or one of the only in any room in tech. And so even when you've found the right person, making the ask, like, hey, will you mentor me, can be pretty scary. And making the relationship stick once you've got the partner can also be quite tricky. And so that's why we developed the Project Thrive program. So what exactly do we do? So firstly, we give you access to the right people. Everyone, all our mentors, all our mentees, they all apply to Thrive. So what we do is we actively curate every potential mentor to make sure that they are trustworthy and to make sure that they resonate with our Project Thrive values. Also, all of our mentors are volunteers. And a lot of them, all of them, the reason that they're doing this is because they've experienced the value of getting the right help when they've needed it, and they're really keen to pass that on. So firstly, we do the hard work of finding the right people. Secondly, we make the ask on your behalf. As I said, making the ask to, will you mentor me can be a little bit awkward. And so what we do is we pair you up with the mentor ourselves. So specifically, during the application phase, we look at the type of mentoring you need, the tech you use, and then any other information that we find out at the application phase. And then we use that information to pair you up with a mentor that would suit you best based on your specific needs. So in this way, we aim to kind of take the awkwardness out of the ask. Thirdly, we help you make the relationship stick. So we believe that a meaningful mentoring relationship needs at least a little bit of structure. And so with our program, we aim to provide just the right amount of structure to act as sort of the guardrails, so that you and your mentor can just focus on building that relationship. So if this sounds pretty cool, how can you get involved? So if you've got 1+ years experience working with code, sign up. So I will show you a link in a minute, but I also think that Pamela will be posting a link. Oh, there it is. There it pops up. Pamela will also post this link on Twitter, so click on that link to sign up. Also, tell your friends about us. Get the word out. We're starting a new mentoring group every single month, so we've got quite a few opportunities for you to join us when you feel the time is right for you. And so, yep, there is the link again. And then before I run away and give the virtual stage to Sheena, I want to know if anyone has any questions. I don't know if we do have Q&A capability right now, but if anyone does have any questions, please feel free to shout. Otherwise, you can reach out to me at that address. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing. It seems like a really, really cool initiative, and I think it will be quite useful for most of the people in the audience.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, seriously, sign up. We're super, super keen to have you on board.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Cool. Cool. So that was the introduction to Project Thrive. Then next up, we'll have Google App Engine from Sheena.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Sheena, how are you doing?
Yeah, great, great.
Awesome, awesome. All right, over to you.
Sweet. Cool. So Google App Engine, I think it's pretty cool. I've used it a lot in my life over the years, and I've used it to good effect and bad effect. So I've got a bit of experience in like specifically when not to use this thing. But also I want to show you just how easy it is to get started and when you would want to use it. So who am I? I am Sheena. Hey, it's me. You can reach me on ZA Tech if you want to. I don't really do the social media thing so much. If you're not on ZA Tech, you probably should be. I'll make a plan to share these slides with you because there are links to useful things on the slides. Yeah. So I'm the current CTO of Umuzi. So what we do is we find people and we build them up. We find high potential young people who want to get into tech. We put them through a training program that's quite intense, and then we hook them up with jobs. So day to day, that means I build people, and I build stuff to help build people, and I build processes to manage the stuff and the people. And that's my life in a nutshell. So enough about me. This is, let's talk about App Engine. The first thing to know about it is that it's a serverless technology. So in being serverless, like what does that mean? Serverless means it's fashionable. What else does it mean? So one of the interesting things about Google App Engine is that it's been serverless for a long time. Serverless sounds like this new fancy thing, but App Engine, like I think it's about a decade old, something like that. So it's been fashionable for a while. Basically what it does is it gives you an easy way to just like take your code, put it on Google's infrastructure and make it work. It gives you Google Scale pretty much out of the box, and Google's pretty good at Scale, known for it. So that's quite nice. And you also get certain other benefits to using Google's infrastructure. So their SLAs are pretty rock solid, and 99.95% uptime is like, it's no joke. It's like really, really good. So that's great. It's also very easy. There's lots of documentation out there on just like how to quickly get started. And it's cheap as well. So like if you sign up, you get lots of free credits just for signing up, which is cool. But then on top of that, there's quite a generous free tier. So if you spin up an App Engine application and you're running it with the default settings and you have like an instance running for a year, it doesn't really cost anything. So that's quite convenient. And in terms of the easy peasy part, like I think, in terms of the easy peasy part, personally, I found it a bit opaque in the beginning. It's just like, do these magical commands and then the magic happens and then your thing is online. So it's like, it wasn't really, like the tutorials are great and stuff, but I kind of want to get a little bit deeper into what's really like how to drive this thing and what it can do. Yeah, and then pay per use, that's a big deal as well. So if you are if you're running an application and it's not getting a lot of traffic, it will scale down to 0. And if you get some traffic and it scales up, you'll only pay for what you use. So that's quite nice. So if you have something sitting dormant, it's not going to cost you anything. So it's very, very easy to experiment with and to just like get something live. So you have something that's up. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So, but still, what is it? So it's kind of difficult to, so like, I'm sure many people who are involved in this session right now have dabbled in cloud technologies in the past and have found them to be probably like maybe a bit overwhelming. There's a whole lot of different things to choose from. If you want to host an app, you've got a lot. And like Google's got a bunch of things, the other cloud providers have a bunch of things, and it can just be quite confusing. So the way I personally like to think about it is I try and put things on a bit of a spectrum. So on the one side of things, we have things that are like managed by you, looked after by you. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have things that are highly managed. Google or the cloud provider will look after them. So I'll start on this side because this is the side that kind of most people are familiar with. So Google have these virtual machines. They call them Google Compute Engines, and it's just a virtual machine. It's just a box. You have sudo. You SSH into the thing, and you can just do whatever you want with sudo, and that's fantastic. So you can do whatever you want. This is a really, really good thing. But the problem is that you have to do all the things yourself. You have to like keep everything up to date, and you need to like look after security and things like that yourself to an extent. So it can be quite a pain in the neck depending on what you want to do. But as you move up this ladder to things that are more highly managed, you get a lot of extra stuff for free. So with Google App Engine, that's like on the very managed side of things. So basically what that means is you release a lot of your control. You can't sudo, you can't have access to certain parts of the application yourself, but you get Google to do some really difficult things for you. So we were talking about scale earlier. Let's say you're running an app on a virtual machine and you suddenly get a whole lot of extra traffic to your application and need to scale up. Suddenly, like that becomes kind of like maybe a manual process, or if you make something automated, it's going to be a challenge. It's not going to be so straightforward to do. and it gets easier as you go up. But with this, with Google App Engine, it just happens for free. Like if you don't want scale, you have to turn it off. Like it's on by default. So that's pretty cool. So it's really convenient, and like I'll show you how easy it is in a second. But like I think for the most part, if you are deploying an application, the point is the application, not the infrastructure. The point is the problem that you're trying to solve. And if you are working on something that's like more managed by Google or someone else, then it means that you can generally focus a bit more on your core responsibilities and mission, which is pretty kiff, I think. Cool. So it has some downsides, definitely. The one downside which people bump their heads on is it's only compatible with certain supported runtimes. So, for example, well, you can run Python, you can run Node, Go, PHP, Java. I think that's it, probably. If you wanted to run something else, like I don't know. Can you run Clojure? No, you can't run Clojure. If you wanted to run Clojure, you would have a problem. It's not supported in App Engine standard. Oh, just a side note quickly. There's two versions of App Engine Standard and App Engine Flex. We are just talking about Standard, and Flex is not as flexible as the name suggests in certain ways. Yeah, so we're focusing on that one. Yeah. So Standard is only compatible with certain runtimes. It has no disk. That's also quite a big deal. It also sometimes confuses people. So basically, if you've got your application running as an App Engine instance, it's great. Maybe you want your users to upload some photographs, or you want them to enter some details and you want to store them somewhere. You can't just like dump anything onto your local storage because it doesn't exist. You have to use external storage. So your App Engine instance is just a service. It's just a conduit to wherever you're storing something else. So it's not such a big deal, to be honest, but it is something to get used to. And we've spoken about the fact that it's highly managed already. One downside that I've bumped into before is that it can get expensive if you apply it to the wrong use case. So basically, because Google manages the scaling up and down process for you, it means that you don't really have that much control over like what triggers the scale up. You can set limits to it and say like, I want this many instances at maximum, and I'm going to cap my budget at this amount and stuff like that. But sometimes it'll scale up maybe a bit early, depending on the workload that you're putting through it. So you do have to be a little bit careful about what you ask it to do if you do expect to have lots of users. So basically, the rule of thumb that I follow there is like, if your application has long-running processes, then probably App Engine isn't the thing that you want. Yeah, cool. So it's sweet spot. APIs are really nice, like nice quick requests and responses, and web apps. So at Umuzi, we have our learning platform that we built, and the front end of this thing is a React application that's being hosted on Google App Engine Standard. But then we put the back end on something else because some of the requests that go through are kind of slow. Yeah, so cool, enough slides. We're going to do some demos. So what I'm going to do is just deploy a very boring Node application. And then in doing so, I want to give you a tour of just like all the weird questions that you might come up with as you go through the process of running this thing. Then I'll give you a tour of features like how the error reporting works, how to split traffic between different versions of your things and naming your different versions of things, how to deal with different services, and like a little bit of a tour of different configuration options that are available, how permissions work, all of that stuff that you would need if you're doing something like big and serious. Yeah, and then getting this thing up and running isn't seriously difficult. There's a quick start which goes through all of this, and there's a quick start for every runtime that's supported. So I recommend that you just like try it yourself sometime because it's not that bad, and yeah, you can have some fun with it. Sweet. time for some code. Whoa. Okay, cool. So, make that a bit bigger. All right. So what we're looking at here is a very boring Node, Express application. So it's got 3 endpoints, 2 of which make errors. So I wanted to just show you, like, you can explicitly raise errors, or like if you have hit like a bug of some kind, then stuff happens. I'll get into that a bit later. And then the main endpoint is just a hello world. Tonight you are my world. So that's that. And for anybody who's ever done like any amount of Express, this is a very, very like standard, simple hello world application. Cool. The next thing that's interesting is package.json. So this is pretty much straight from npm init. It's completely auto-generated except for this one line, which I wrote myself. It's very took a lot of skill. So basically what we need is a way, we need to be able to tell Google App Engine, this is how you start the thing. And that's how you do it. So if I just go npm start, then I can go here. And I can just go there and ta-da, our wonderful web application and our errors will work as expected. So yeah, it's a totally unexpected error. Cool. So that's that. The next thing that's interesting, or the next thing that you need to know about, is this thing called app.yaml. So up until this point, everything that we've done, it's just normal Node. Like you can run that stuff on your computer. App.yaml is where we start to put in the App Engine magic. And like it's a configuration file. You can do quite a lot of different things with it. But the main thing that you need to do is tell it what runtime we're using. So we're using Node. Wonderful. Cool. So that's all the configuration we need to get this thing live. The next thing we need to do is deploy it to the cloud. So in order to do that, there's this command line utility called gcloud. And gcloud's pretty cool and easy to spell. And it's just something that Google provides. So if you follow that link to the quick start, then you will be able to download and install this thing. And basically what you can do with it is like freaking everything. So you can interact with all sorts of things on Google Cloud, and that's great. So we are only going to be interested in this little piece here. We're going to be looking at apps. So let's see what happens if I say gcloud app. Great. There's a bunch of different commands I can do. I'm interested in deploying gcloud app deploy. So it's like quite discoverable, which is cool. So now if I say gcloud app deploy, it's going to come up with an error. Basically, what it's asking me for now is a thing called a project. And if you follow along with the like quick start tutorial or something, I'll say like, and then you do a project and magic happens. But it's like what's a project? So the way I think about it is that it's sort of like a directory or an umbrella, or something in which you can associate, like contain a bunch of different resources. So let's say, for example, I am a software development house and I've got different clients that I am building some stuff for. One of my clients might have a project, and that project might contain like some cloud SQL and an app engine and like maybe some buckets to store things in, and then my other client would have a separate project, and their resources would be completely isolated from this client. So that's pretty much it. You can also have multiple projects for your own organization. So maybe you have one for your production environment and another one for your staging environment. There's all sorts of different use cases, but different projects are isolated from each other, which is the most important thing. Cool. So let's go to a project. All right. So I made this one earlier. Yeah. And it is like very fresh. I've done nothing to it except create it, because sometimes creating it, you get a spinning donut for a while. But basically, to make a new project, if you're doing it via this website, console.cloud.google.com, then you just like click up here and say new project and life is good. You can also do it from the command line, but I want to show you this stuff just because it's like nicer for presentations and it's discoverable and intuitive and all that good stuff. Sweet. So we have a project. Cool. So this project has a ID, and that's useful for deploying. So go back over here, and I'm just going to say gcloud app deploy project and put in the ID there, and that's going to get going. Cool. So the first thing it does is it asks me this really difficult question. It's like, where do you want to put your stuff? So like, it is kind of a hard question. If you aren't like the first time I saw this, I was just like, whoa, it's tough. So the way to solve this, there's a cool tool called GC Ping, which helps a lot. gcping.com. Basically, what you want to do is make sure that wherever your users are, they experience the minimum latency possible when accessing your application. So I'm in South Africa and my users are in South Africa. So I just open this website from South Africa, and it sends a request to all the different like data centers or regions probably in Google Cloud, and then it's like, hey, this one's the fastest. So we will go with, so it says Europe West 2 is the fastest. Cool. So we're going to use that. Wonderful. It is usually like somewhere in Europe. Sometimes it changes a little bit. Europe West 2 is number 9. Cool. Sweet. And then it starts to spin. So this takes a little bit of time. So while that's going, I am going to show you. Hey. Right, this does take, what? Oh dear. Very mysterious. I was playing around with different environments earlier, and sometimes if you delete a project, then it takes a little bit of time before it lets you make a new one, and that's very annoying when that happens. But I have another one we can work with if this doesn't work. So in the meantime, I'll show you a little bit about how permissions work. So the reason I'm showing you permissions is because people tend to ask about it. So I'm just like short-circuiting that a little bit. So one of the cool things about Google Cloud is that you have very, very fine-grained permissions over like all your resources. Sure. Okay. So basically, since this is a new project, there's not a whole lot of things going on. There's me, and then there's a couple of service accounts that exist. I'm the owner, so I can do whatever I want. But if you wanted to, you could add a new user, and you can give them like incredibly fine-grained control over absolutely everything. So, and then of course, like these permissions are also isolated project to project. So you can give different people permissions on your different things. Wonderful. Let's see if this thing deployed. Hey, it worked. Okay, cool. So, sweet. So it's got a really like great looking URL over there. Let me go back there. And that's just automatically generated. It's got HTTPS, which is fantastic. You didn't need to set up anything there. It just kind of works. And we have our application right there. Wonderful. Sweet. So I'm just going to get some errors going. Oh, no. And we have an internal server error, just as expected. So this application works exactly the same as it did on our local machine. So I'm just like refreshing the page a few times because I want to demonstrate something about how errors are recorded. Refresh, cool. All right, so let's go back here. So one of the really, really cool things about Google App Engine as well, and Google specifically as compared to other clouds, like this is something that seems to be uniquely Google. Its error reporting is just fantastic. Like you don't need to do anything; it just works, and that's pretty awesome. So you'll see that over here we've got 2 errors that came up. Bugger is not defined, and golly, this was unexpected, just as expected. This one happened 10 times, and this one happened 9 times because I refreshed the page a bunch. What I don't get is like 19 lines of crazy red error messages. They get grouped up nicely, so it makes it easier to manage these things. It's got ways to like keep track of your errors. You can also turn on notifications, which you should do if you have real users. So you can get emailed when new kinds of errors pop up. If I zoom in a little bit and I take a look at a specific error, it'll give me error logs. Like I can see exactly what happened at different places. I can view the logs for that thing. So it's really quite like, it really helps a lot. It really like makes finding these errors pretty good. Yeah, so that's error logging. As far as I know, with other cloud services, they have this kind of functionality, but you need to do stuff to make it work. Cool. So that's that. The next thing I wanted to show you was different services and how to deploy many. So what's a service? When you deploy, so I just added this line in here. The last time I deployed it, it was effectively saying service default. Now it's service foo. You might have different services to do different things. So generally you'd have different services having different jobs. So maybe you'd have like a front end service running React, and then you'd have another service for back end running Python. Maybe you'll have a whole lot of different like front end facing API services for different front ends. So basically you can run lots of different applications. They don't necessarily need to run with the same runtime. They just, but they can all be in Google App Engine. So the default service is called default. And then anything else you have just needs a name. Cool. This does take a little bit of time, but what can I show you in the meantime? Cool. So another thing that's really cool that is quite handy is the debugger. So let's say you're running some code and there's an error and you want to be able to spy on what's going on. Then you can use the debugger. So it's not perfectly set up yet. Like there are some extra steps to jump through here, but you can actually like go and look at the code that's running, any specific version of the code that you've deployed, and you can put in breakpoints, and it doesn't actually make a real breakpoint. It doesn't like stop the code from running, so everything will still happen. It's just that at those breakpoints you can see the variable values at that point. So of course, like you wouldn't want to just like let anybody do that for security reasons, but you know, give the right people security access, and then they can jump in here. They can even look at your settings and all of that good stuff. So that's pretty handy. Cool. Let's go back here. Hey, it worked. Wonderful. So I should have changed the name. Let me make another one. Okay, I'm gonna say foo. V2. Right, I'm just going to deploy that again. Also, when deploying things, you can specify a version name or number on your own, which is cool. So I'm just going to call that version V2. Great. So something that I found very useful is if I have this, if I have a continuous integration pipeline busy deploying my Google App Engine instances, then a really convenient thing to use as the version number is your commit hash. So you can easily see like, oh, this piece of code, like this specific commit is the specific version, and here's how it behaves in the wild, and these are the errors to do with this commit. So that's quite a handy thing to make use of. Cool. So that's busy deploying, which is great. Sweet. So Now, if I go to App Engine, it's got like a whole lot of stuff going on. What I'm mostly interested in right now is this tab here, services. So we spoke about like this was the first one that we deployed, and then Foo was the second one that we deployed, and it works perfectly as well. It'll look very much the same as the last one because I forgot to change things. But you'll see the URLs a bit different. So it's Foo dot and then the same URL that the default one had after that. So I can access any service by URL, and I can also access any version of it, any service by a unique and special URL. So I can really pick and choose there. Let's see if this thing has any more versions yet. Hey, cool. So Foo's got 2 versions and default has 1 version. Oops, I didn't mean to click that. I meant to click that one. All right. So here you can see that we've deployed 2 versions of Foo. If I go to Foo now, since the new one has been deployed, you can see that it's the new version, which is great. And if I go back here and take a look around, then so basically what happens when I deploy my code is the code gets put up and it turns into an entity of its own that exists here. And then once it's up, then traffic gets migrated from the old version to the new version. So you can turn that behavior on and off when you do your gcloud app deploy call. So you can say, like, rather don't migrate the traffic, I'll do it myself, please, later. And the reason that you might want to do that is if you want to get something up, do a couple of poking, like a bit of poking around and testing, and then deploy the traffic, migrate the traffic later. So you can do that sort of thing if you want to, which is pretty powerful. And then another thing that you can do, which I think is pretty kiff, is just like you can, where are we? There we go. Zoomed in too much. Traffic splitting. So let's say, for example, you want to, wait, do I have the right thing selected? Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. Foo. All right, cool. So if I go for traffic splitting here, what I can do is I can say I want 50% of the traffic to go to one version and 50% to another. So maybe you want to slowly move traffic from the one service to the other. You want to be like, is it okay for 10% of our users? Is it okay for 20% of our users? And then scale it to, like, migrate it across as you gain confidence. So that's cool. Or you could use it for A/B testing, that kind of thing. And you can make, you can use this to define like your user experience to an extent, to say like, should a person always go to the same service, or should they randomly hop around? So I'm gonna choose random for now. And it'll update for a little bit. Cool, it is saved. So now if I refresh this, it keeps switching between the 2 different services randomly, which is very, very handy. Cool. Apparently V1 is the most random service. Yeah, sweet. So that is that. Cool. What else did I want to show you? Right. All right, so I wanted to show you a little bit about the different configuration options that are available to you. So there's this app YAML reference that exists, and it exists for all the different like runtimes, but it's same. Basically, the one line that's necessary is the runtime, but then on top of that, you can do all sorts of cool things. So you can say like, there's a default instance class. The instance class is pretty much like how strong a machine you're using. So it would be like how much RAM you have and how fast is your clock. So you can change that, and there's a list of what's available that you can choose from, which is great. You can use environmental variables. You can use this thing to serve static resources and do different things at different URLs. And it's really like there's quite a lot of different stuff you can do. You can change stuff about the scaling settings and say like, this is how many instances I want. This is the maximum number of instances I want. This is the maximum number of idle instances I want. So it's quite like there's quite a lot that you can do in app.yaml. So play around. I would suggest. Yeah, and then what else did I want to show you? I think that is about it. So I would be happy to take a bunch of questions now.
Thank you so much, Sheena. Cool. So I think that there were a few questions. Got a question here. In what cases would you choose App Engine over using Firebase?
So Firebase, as far as I know, it's actually App Engine under the hood. So I think it makes some things easier. I think it's got a better UI in some cases, but generally I haven't really had a need for it. I suppose if you wanted to use some of the Firebase specific technologies, then it would make sense to use Firebase over App Engine. So I know that they've got Firestore and stuff like that. So I don't know if you could plug Firestore into an App Engine. I've never tried, but yeah.
Cool. Then we've got another question, which says, what are the benefits of Google App Engine over AWS, or are they incomparable?
So I've used AWS not as much as I'd like, really. But in my experience, okay, so I had a bad experience, you guys. I found that AWS kind of made too many assumptions about what I wanted, and so it upgraded stuff. It upgraded my stuff in a way that was incompatible with the rest of my stuff, and everything broke. But maybe that was just like an isolated event, so I'm not really sure. And then the other thing that's different is the error logging stuff. So on AWS, as far as I know, you have to jump through some serious hoops to get it set up, and it's just like, oh, my whole day's gone. Whereas with Google Cloud, it's just like, hey, it works. So that's a benefit. I think on top of that, like the various cloud providers, there are a lot of like really similar like offerings across them when it comes to just like hosting an app, because we've been hosting apps forever, you guys. So so there will be comparable stuff that AWS has. I think like one of the things that I actually like about Google Cloud is that it's one of the simpler clouds to get your head around. So I find AWS, like there's a lot going on there. So I might just be biased as well because I started off with Google Cloud. But it is like the documentation's great. It's just like easy and well behaved. Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, then we've got a comment. Cool. I think, yeah, one more question. Is it multiple instances per service, or instances for entire app engine per project?
Okay, cool. So you can have as many projects as you want. Inside each of those projects, you can have, well, there is an upper limit, but you can effectively have as many App Engine like services as you want. So you'll have the default service, your food service, your front-end service, your whatever API service, and that's cool. And then for each of those services, those can have different versions. And each of those versions can have multiple instances. So it like really goes all the way down. So for example, let's say we're doing this A/B testing of the foo service and we're really popular. So maybe we've got like a whole lot of compute, dedicated to version 1 and version 2 of the foo service. And then the default service is just sitting over there. Like maybe it's got nothing going on. Maybe it's got something going on. So yeah. That's what I got.
All right, cool. Then we've got a comment from Ruben also. As a VS Code user, there's probably no need, but have you tried to dev with Cloud Shell editor? a lot in your experience? If so,
No, I just use VS Code generally. So whenever there's like an online code editor, my first question is, can I does it speak Git? Like, can I just use my repos in the normal way? And if I'm using my repos in the normal way, then like my development environment has all my favorite shortcuts and that kind of thing built in. So yeah, I don't really see that much of a benefit to using a cloud editor if I can use a local machine. Yeah.
cool. I think that's it for the questions. Thank you so much. That was an awesome talk, and we've learned a lot from you. Thank you.
Sweet. Thank you.
Cool. Cool. Then next up, we've got a talk from Vuyo. She'll be talking about the imposter among cloud providers.
Hi,
Hey,
Mali.
Vuyo.
How
How are you doing?
I'm in a hurry, hey? I'm good, thanks. Yeah, very excited, and I enjoyed all the talks that like came before me. I loved that Sheena touched on cloud, especially with GCP using App Engine, and what Andrea had to say as well, because she's like low key my mentor.
Oh, awesome, awesome.
Okay.
That's awesome. All right, cool. So you can jump right straight into it. Over to
Okay.
you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hi everyone. I hope you guys are sitting comfortably. So my talk for today is going to be the imposter among cloud providers and trying to figure out how to become a good imposter. So it's very, very challenging to figure out which cloud provider to go for, especially at this day and age where we've got IBM Cloud, we've got GCP, Tencent, Azure, Alibaba Cloud, Oracle Cloud, and AWS, of course, and a bunch of others, right? I want to just start off with a quote by Maya Angelou saying that try to be someone's rainbow in the cloud, unrelated to cloud computing, but I thought it would just be fun to throw it in there. So what's going to happen today is I'm going to give you guys a set of instructions that we can hopefully follow together, tasks for us to do, and for us to identify if we like this particular imposter, would like to be a cloudmate. And then you could follow with me in quick labs as well if you'd like, or you could do it in your own time. And then just a little fun fact, we've got over 3.6 billion users, obviously people that are on the internet using cloud services. So if you're Netflixing, YouTubing, that is streaming the service right now, you're part of that as well. And a little nice thing to know about Google's data center is that they have 19 data centers, the majority of them being in the United States, which are like 11. And then they've got like 4 in Europe, 2 in Asia, and like roughly about 2 in South America as well. And I think it's also very interesting and cool to know the different storage plans that come with it as well, like from standard, nearline, code line, and archive. And then just, I don't know if you guys will be able to follow with me, but just in the comment sections, maybe just type NOI if any of you guys have played Among Us. Sadly, I can't see it now, otherwise I'm going to have to like switch from one git to another, but I'll just try to open YouTube on my phone. Yeah. So if any of you guys have played a game of Among Us, you would know that it takes about 4 to 10 people in a group where it randomly selects the imposter. So you have tasks as crewmates to complete as you're going up an airship. And what needs to happen is that the crewmates need to complete the tasks, and that the imposter among you guys needs to sabotage you guys so that you don't actually reach your destination and try to kill you. And then, so the crewmates need to figure out, so who is the imposter amongst the crewmates, because nobody knows who the imposter is. So there could be 1 or 2 or 3 imposters in a particular game. So what I've done today is I've simulated playing Among Us with playing with cloud providers, right? And so what happens is how we play the game is players join a group or community, in this case with us, cloud people. And then if you're a cloudmate, complete tasks. So this is just touching a bit on reading the documentation that is given to you at hand. And then if you're an imposter, you need to kill everybody. So to win the game, the imposter needs to kill people, right? And then step 4, we have to vote off the imposter. Well, vote off other players that you think are the imposter. So then you'll hear terms like somebody's sus, which means someone is suspicious. If you are thinking that they could possibly be the imposter. Now, in this scenario, if you're not enjoying a particular cloud provider, whether it's Tencent, Azure, GCP, you could always try to use certain things like call-in APIs to use some of their functions that are really cool, which I'll be detailing a bit later. And then step 5, we've got we have to discuss who the imposter is. So what happens is in the game is that there's a section called the cafeteria, which will be depicted a bit later, where you press an emergency button if you think somebody's trying to kill you, and then everybody can chat and vote and deliberate as to who they think the imposter is and why. And then you vote people off. It's a really fun game. And then we've got different locations. So people use the cloud for different reasons, whether it's public cloud, private cloud, or hybrid cloud. So in this case of Among Us, we've got different maps. So the most popular map that is used is Skilled. They've got Mirror HQ and Polis as well. So what you find in the public cloud, that is usually what individuals would use. Private cloud is mainly smaller companies and so forth. Hybrid clouds would be probably people like the banking sector would want to open up public and private together, but they would want to have an extra layer of security for internal purposes. And then we'll have our tasks. So as I mentioned before, it's very, very important to read the documentation that is given to you to understand or have a better understanding of what the users or the people that have written the content would like for people to do. So in the game of Among Us, there's a section where you actually customize and you pick a skin. So you can change to any color you like. But there's a limited number of colors because it takes up to 10 people in a group. So in this case, we've got our Alibaba, our Azure, our GCP, Oracle, IBM. And what you find is with all these cloud providers is that they work hand in hand. So you can have your plugins. I know Azure uses quite a few of GCP's things under the hood. So you can definitely use those Kubernetes capabilities with Azure. But if you find something that's really cool in AWS, you can plug it into GCP and be able to make that process of yours on your cloud journey even more seamless, right? So what do I do? For example, as I mentioned before, let's say blue is Azure. So what is EBAS? So what EBAS is Ethereum Blockchain as a Service. One of my favorites. I got the opportunity to actually see the launch of Vitalik, who is the co-founder of Ethereum, actually partner with Microsoft. And I thought that was really brilliant because it helps developers, especially ones that are using Solidity or that are smart contract based applications. It made that integration or that process very seamless. So working with a company like Microsoft Azure with blockchain as a service is brilliant in that regard. GCP is not yet at that level when it comes to blockchain as a service. So I would definitely probably recommend a service like using Azure. I have played around with IBM's blockchain as a service, and the user experience was just, not that nice. And then what we have over here, let's pretend that GCP is the imposter, right? So I am a bit impartial. I definitely am like pro GCP. I've played around with different cloud services, but I found that my transition to GCP was so smooth, the community, the content, and so forth. And I just wanted to share that journey with you guys. So what's nice about GCP is that the adoption, it makes things so much simpler, it's cost effective, and it's more secure. And then as we speak about customization, as I mentioned before, for example, you want a red hat. So now we've got a little IBM hat on ourselves, on our skin. And I think it would be really cool for you to be able to use different APIs. And then over here, we've got to finish our tasks. So what happens, as I mentioned before in the game of Among Us, you need to complete your tasks. You can make announcements. You've got the emergency calls. You need to react when the imposter tries to sabotage. And so what happens? So in this scenario of sabotages, we need to bear in mind that cloud providers can let us down. Earlier this year, oh no, not this year, I think it was late last year, I think Google had issues. YouTube was not working properly. So that is one of the symptoms of relying a lot on the cloud, is not realizing that there is that SLA that they will breach, right? Comms, for example, Amazon's EC2, they had a cloud compute outage. Google Docs had an outage as well. Microsoft Office had issues. Bad weather can also affect data centers as well. And then over here, we've got infrastructure as a service. And this is probably one of the buzzwords or IaaS or PaaS and so forth. So it's just understanding what is being offered to you by these cloud providers. And what they do is they help you procure, config, manage your infrastructure. So you could do this in different stages where you have total control, where you give them half of the control, or where they help you make your workload a bit easier. So you give them a bit more control in terms of the security layers that are there at your disposal as well. So talking about maps, here we'll also be looking at GCP's quick labs as well. So we mentioned the map in the beginning. It's called Skilled. So I spoke about a cafeteria. You can see on top there's a cafeteria. So in this instance, it'll be Cloud SDK. We've got Cloud Run, that would be Medbay. We've got Upper Engine Operations. We've got Cloud SQL. We've got Cloud IM, Cloud Compute Engine. Funny enough, it was also in the engine room. And then we've got Electrical, and that would be the Google Kubernetes engine. We've got Cloud Storage, that would be the storage room in Among Us. And then we've got data flow as well, that's part of comms. We've got shielded VMs. What's cool about shielded VMs is that they help against people attacking other people's virtual machines as well. So from remote attacks as well. Yeah. So it's called, I believe it's called rootkits. Yeah, I'll say, sorry about that. So it defends against rootkits and remote attacks. And then we've got BigQuery, we've got Cloud CDN, we've got Anthos, which is pretty cool. And then over here in Skilled Rooms, just talking about the command line tools that we have at our disposal. We've got the virtual machines running on obviously on Google's data centers. We've got different permission management systems that are available for us. So it's the different organizations or permissions that you're allowing the people in your organizations to receive, whether you want someone to have access to certain tools or not. You've got the amazing Kubernetes. So whether you're into containerization, that's a really, really cool one. I think when Google took GCP out and then they had Kubernetes as their baby, that was really brilliant. And so we need to figure out who did it. So Pink is looking kind of sus. Yeah, so I think it's just about finding the right cloud provider for you and obviously eliminating the ones that don't work. And if you're out here killing people, don't do it. And then sadly, Azure was ejected, but Azure was not the imposter. And this is what happens in the game. So sometimes you find you eject someone and probably that person was not the imposter, and it could have been a really cool service to integrate with or use as a third party for whatever you needed in your project. Because sometimes no one cloud provider has all the solutions. And so as I was talking about service level agreements, with regards to cloud storage, what Google says is they offer a 99.98% in terms of recovery, in terms of you having access to your information. And sadly, there's a downtime of 5 minutes. And if they exceed that, they obviously credit your account, depending on how long it took, but it's roughly about 50% of that account. And now we're going to switch over to Quick Labs. I hope the transition will be a bit smoother. Let's just try to hide here. Okay, so what you'll find on Quick Labs is what's really cool is that it's really self-paced. So if you just go on quicklabs.com, you'll find whether you want to learn about Firebase, BigQuery, Cloud Run, AutoML as well was a really cool feature that Google took out. So just having a tour of that. And so for today, we're going to get started with Cloud Shell. So if anybody has ever used, so I was already in there. So if anybody has ever used Vim, Emacs, Nano, please just type VEN, or if you've used all three, just type all three. It'll be really cool to know because it'll help you if you're not familiar with using a terminal or command line interface, just to get familiar with that as well. So over here, I'm not going to do the entire lab. I just want to walk through the lab itself. So let me just start a bit with the lab. Okay, I'm not a robot. And let's just give an invalid token. Fun times. Okay, let's just refresh. Let's try it again. I think getting errors in real time is more scary. But anyway, let's just wait and hope things go by smoothly. Okay. Access code. Okay, buy credits. Okay, let me just log out and try again. Otherwise, I'm just going to walk through it with you guys. And try it. Because I already had credits. I think it might still want credits again. I didn't want to buy credits. Yeah, no. Okay. So what I'll do for now is I'll just walk through it with you guys. Sorry about that. So what you find is when you start the lab is it generates so the user ID and the user password, and that is what you would use. And you'll find it looks like this. So it's going to open up the Google console as well. And that would be over here. So on your left-hand side, where it says get started with the essentials, you'll receive your password, your GCP project as well. And then you'll have to sign in with your details. You can either use another account. So I had a lot of student Quick Labs accounts. And then you'd see on the platform itself how you can navigate the menu. You'll find that the marketplace is also really cool when it comes to integrating with different APIs as well, or connecting them and making sure that it's active. Then over here, we've got Cloud Shell. So a lot of the commands that you find here, I think what's really cool is having a little cheat sheet just to understand whether it's ls, cd, whatever it is, just so that you understand the jargon as well. It helps a lot when navigating Cloud Shell. And what we have over here is to authenticate a list. So this would be to check if your project ID is doing what it's supposed to be doing, if it's active or not. And then we've got a full documentation of the command line tools, so the overview of it. And then you'd have to configure the environment. So this is the different regions. So we spoke about the Google's 19 data centers, and then they have different regions in these different locations. And with GC Ping that you saw that Sheena did, finding the closest region, the region to your location is really cool as well. And then we've got Google Cloud Config. So this is to configure and get a value of compute zone. So this is to find the zone in the region that you'll be in. So obviously it's got a default one and you can set that accordingly. And obviously, I think what's really cool is it is its own terminal. So you don't have to use Vim or Nano. You can definitely be comfortable using Google Cloud as well. Cloud Shell, sorry. And then over here we've got so you'll find in a lot of the terminal commands, you have to use gcloud quite a lot. Compute depending on what you need to do. You can also use Cloud Shell, whether it's for Kubernetes and so forth. You can set the different environment variables that you need or require. You can echo, so just to check if everything runs properly as well. You can create a virtual machine, which is really cool. And then you can also try to, so now what they did was they used standard, and standard would be the different cloud storage that they're using, and there'd probably be no additional cost for them accessing that information because it's going to be required frequently, which is really cool. So you've got the different zones, preemptible. So what's really cool is that how Google made the different capabilities accessible to people. So then we've got instances that you can create. So you can do whatever you're doing in the terminal, you can also do in the GUI. So that is, if I go up top over here, what you find in the nav menu as well. So you can always do that, seeing it visually, and then you'll see that there's like a little graph bar. Whenever you start creating an instance, for example, it's going to start moving up or down depending on how active you are. And as we scroll down, it's really cool. So they updated a lot of these activities that you get to do. So whether you need help, so if you're using Brew or whatever other tools that you're comfortable with, so gcloud has its own help command that you can run, configs as well, you can quit as well, lists, and so forth. And then you can install a new component. So using commands like sudo apt-get, which people that are already using the terminal are familiar with, would be easy for them. And you find that there's also a copy button. I try to refrain from that because if you want to get comfortable using GCP, it's good practice to actually type out every single letter that is required or word. Yeah. And then over here, connecting to your VM instance, also checking out on load balancers. So you'll find that with the different activities that you have, you can also play around with that. So we saw Sheena actually create this, but she was using a different environment, whereas here we'd be using the Cloud Shell, and that is more or less how it would look. What's really cool is that you also get scored, and if you get it right, then you get specific points. So in this case, it would have been like 100 points. Well, it's actually 10, but anyway. And then over here, it would test your knowledge. So the three basic ways to interact with Google Cloud services and resources are obviously Cloud Console, GStreamer, no, client libraries, yes, glib, no, command line interface, yes. So those would be the three. And then you'd get your little badge, which is really cool. So this is just having a better understanding, whether it's compute engine, whether it's cloud storage, GKE, managed environment for running containerized apps, is really cool. They also have a couple of exercises on Cloud IM, which is really cool when it comes to permission management. So when you're running a team or you have a team and you have to give different people different permissions, like in the organizations, is really cool. Yeah, and I think that's about it. Bali, I hope you come back. And I just wanted to thank you. I just make it full screen and then I run away. Okay, so if you guys want to get in touch or play a game of Among Us with me, I'll walk you through the game nicely. Yeah, we can definitely set something up. Yeah, and that's about it.
Cool. I'll contact you to play the game with you.
No, I'd love to. I'd love to. It's a really fun one.
Yeah, true. I've played it before as well.
Okay,
Does
glad.
it
At
seem-
least you had context.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Let's see if there are any questions from the chat on YouTube. Cool, but that was really an awesome talk, and it's quite cool how you made it parallel to the Among Us game. You know, that was really a cool concept.
Thank you. And it's my son, actually. So my son is like, well, he just turned 6. So he started playing Among Us like since last year, sadly. And he's the one who actually got me into Among Us. So when he started asking me, what does imposter mean? And I was like, how do I explain that? But yeah, so then I started getting into the game as well. And I was like, this is really cool. Do you get free credits to try out labs? Yes, you do. Sadly, I have exhausted mine. If I actually showed when I try to sign in, it was going to be a nightmare because I have a lot of email addresses that I've used. But yeah, you definitely do get free credits to use the labs.
Okay, awesome. Any other questions? Doesn't seem like there's a lot of questions, but yeah, thank you so much for the talk. It was really awesome. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cool. So would like to get some feedback from everyone, and basically some feedback on the talks that we had tonight, as well as any suggestions for future meetups. And we'll leave this survey with this slide on for you to fill in the Google form. Then afterwards, we'll probably leave this for like 2 to 3 minutes. And then after that, we'll then go back to the slide on where you can win some swag. And that will be another form that you can fill in. So I think that's it for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us and enjoy the rest of your evening.